Hey, my name's Nagesh. We're at our restaurant Manze in North Melbourne. I was born in Mauritius and lived very close to the beach for most of my life there. We moved to New Zealand when I was 8 years old. Sort of being a kid was all about, as coy as it sounds, like island life. Like my dad would go fishing whenever he had a spare moment, and I'd go along with him and like play on the beach and stuff. And yeah, grew up eating lots of seafood, tropical produce, spice, chili, with parents who loved to cook and grandparents who loved to cook. Lots of like big family events centered around food. When I look back on it now, what my parents were really good at was keeping sort of connection to our heritage and culture through food. Like, it was always important for Mum to put up a really good meal that was very similar to what we ate when we were kids. We lived on a hobby farm for a few years in New Zealand. They like grew a lot of our own vegetables and did home kills of sheep and chickens, and Dad always went fishing. So we always ate pretty well, like no matter what situation we were in, just because that's what my parents always valued. That was really special to reflect on that now and how normalised that was being a kid, and now it's obviously a big part of my professional life. There weren't many Mauritians in New Zealand at the time, the same way that there's like an Indian community or like a Chinese community. So we were like a bit isolated for a bit, but also that's, I think, part of the nature of being Mauritian as well. Amazing thing about Mauritius as well is the country itself is like a real mix of people from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds, but we all speak Creole. I've got a Mauritian Chinese friend here, and sometimes we'll catch up and be speaking in Creole, and people are so confused because we're speaking the same language, but we obviously like look so different, but also the language kind of sounds like French, and it's a bit baffling for a lot of people. Not long after that, I was working somewhere and cooking Mauritian food for my staff meals every week, and people were like, "This is delicious, this is pretty unique. You should try sharing this with more people." And I don't know if you remember Rockwell and Sons or know Rockwell and Sons. It's a burger shop on Smith Street. And I ended up asking those guys if I could do a pop-up, and kind of dived into it, roped a bunch of friends to help out, which was amazing. And we just did an Instagram post and somehow it booked out. It was stressful, so many things went wrong. It's still probably one of the worst days of my life. Like, when I look back on it now, like somehow we put on this event with very little money, and like 70 or 80 people came through from all sorts of different backgrounds and enjoyed it. It just became kind of addictive, and then 2 or 3 months later did another one that was equally a shambles. and did a third one which was a bit better, and I was like, I'm a sucker for punishment, and just kept doing it. And I think in 2 years did 6 or 7, but I just knew that I wanted to come back and work in somewhere that had, I guess, the values of fine dining, where it comes to like good ingredients and finesse and attention to detail and quality, but less restrained, less elitist, less of a barrier to entry, but essentially more flavour. Yeah, I want to do something small, obviously centred around Mauritian food and like natural wine. I want to do it in North Melbourne because there's not much else going on, and we just did it. And we had this conversation in March, and we signed a lease in May. It's just ballooned, and ultimately like there's all these little pinpoints along the way where it like picked up a skill or met someone, or all contributed to here.